campuses to deliver our educational mission during a pandemic. And at the same time, we had lost revenue. So a couple notes on the revenue. So our total net operating revenue of $247 million was down from $265 million. That's an $18.5 million decrease in revenue. But you can see we did a good job in managing our expenses. That was the community coming together in managing expenses during this time of uncertainty. And we were able to decrease our expenses by $18.2 million. And that, in fact, allowed us to have a deficit similar to what it was the year before. As we look into FY22, which I'll get in a minute, we do think those revenues will all return. We see no indication that revenue will not rebound back to post-pandemic. And in fact, that's what we're seeing through the start of the fall semester. So I want to talk about the balance sheet. And this is really, what we own and what we're worth. So as we look at the balance sheet, you can reference the memo I sent out the day after the board meeting. The biggest change is we saw a significant improvement in our balance sheet, and our assets grew from $1.58 billion to $1.994. And if you look at the investment line, you can see we had the largest dollar increase in our investment line from $1.136 billion to $1.535 billion. This was primarily fueled by a 38.8% endowment return from Investure and fundraising, and the fact that we released 5% from the endowment. Now, there was a lot of conversation last summer about why wouldn't we just take more out of the endowment. The finance team went to the board with a recommendation to address any short-term cash flow issues to support our commitment to our faculty and staff by borrowing that money. And we borrowed $30 million. We will pay it back over a 7-year period. That was to spread the impact of this pandemic over a longer period of time without rating the endowment. And that decision, and that was supported by the board, proved to be very valuable. If you had assumed we took the $30 million out last summer from the endowment, and the endowment then earned 38.8%, that has nearly a $12 million impact on us. Our endowment return was $12 million higher because we borrowed that money, and you should know that we borrowed that money below 2%. So I call your attention to that. When you look at liabilities, you'll see long-term debt went up. That's reflective of the $30 million I just spoke about. And then I would call your attention to our net assets. That is the net worth of the college. What is the college worth? And the college is worth $1.587 billion. And that is up substantially from $1.2 billion. So when President Patton speaks about we have now have the investment in the balance sheet to grow into what we have already built, this is what she's referring to. So how does that relate to going forward? As Lori shared with us, SLG was able to move forward with the implementation of HR strategy and plan to say thank you in the form of this recognition and reward program as we plan and prepare out for the salary strategy that Lori mentioned. So when we look at this year that we're in, the board approved a budget back in May of a $5.9 million deficit. And we made the argument we were supposed to be at break even, but we said, look, there's still uncertainties around study abroad. There's still uncertainty with the pandemic. So we built a budget that stayed core to who we were, still tightening the belt. We were only in a position to appropriate 2% to the salary pool, and we built that budget. Projection 1, which was reflective through September 30th, was presented to the board 2 weeks ago, and that was showing a deficit of $4 million. And we are trending in a positive manner of that number slowly coming down by the time we hit to projection 2 in January. And this slide just reflects what those changes are. There is an increase in revenue of $4.1 million that is primarily driven by tuition at the undergraduate college, because we have a lot of students here in Middlebury, and additional federal and state grants. There are some potential downsides, but they're modest. They're $2 million as we have to continue to spend dollars around COVID response. But we also have some potential upside around, we have forecasted the spring semester to not be that robust given the uncertainties with international travel, but that seems to be getting better every day. And we do anticipate now that we will see some additional funding. I'll end by just saying we do believe we'll move into FY23 with an ability to achieve the road to financial sustainability. That was the plan that Lori developed upon her arrival, that said we will operate at a modest operating surplus, and we will be in a position to move forward to address our highest priorities in an ongoing basis. The growth of the endowment, as long as there's not a significant downturn in the coming years, will provide funding mechanisms over the next 3 years that will help support initiatives. But it's over a 3-year period because we calculate the release on a rolling 12 quarters. I'll end with recognition and appreciation. We couldn't have done this without the entire community in achieving this, in threading this needle of managing the financial operations of a large, small, complex college during a pandemic. But we did it because of our people, and I share Lori's gratitude and gratefulness to all of you. And it's with great excitement that I turn to my new fellow colleague, Caitlin Goss, who has only been here 60 days, but she is jumped in. She has heard from many of you. I promised my friends in Monterey, she's coming your way very soon. We're hoping to get her out there. But she has been a joy for the senior leadership team and for all those who have gotten to know her. But she's going to share with you her thinking around HR and hashtag mid-community.
Thanks, David. Really appreciate it. And I believe Joe is going to put up slides. So yeah, I wanted to share a bit of an HR update, so you can move to the next slide. First, starting really with, Joe, am I driving here or? I don't think so. Joe, if you don't mind moving to the next slide, that would be great. Yeah, so we wanted to really talk through the rewards and recognition. So several key themes have emerged that led to us sending the announcement that we sent out earlier today. So hopefully everyone has gotten to see that. But the first is acknowledgement. We really wanted to create a space for and recognize the hard work, the stress, the burnout, and the burden that so many feel in our community. These are really complicated times. And so there's no easy or quick fix to that. But we all know that creating the space to talk about it, normalizing that, and inviting that conversation is really important. So I wanted to start with acknowledgement. The second is taking action. So we know that there is pent-up demand for compensation, rewards, and recognition, especially on the heels of what David just spoke about. Now that we are in a more stable place from a financial perspective, there's real demand, right? As I've been talking with many of you, those questions are really coming up. And so we wanted to indicate that we are committed to taking action. And it's important to highlight that this is the first step. We've got more to do. And last, we also know that there's a real need to solve big, that we want to avoid immediate solutions that are quick fixes, but perpetuate some of the systemic challenges that we have within what we have currently, and really build towards a more robust solution. And so with that, we wanted to do something. And we also want to We want to clearly commit around what Lori and David already spoke about around doing that work to get salaries right for staff and rolling that out in FY23 in July of 2022. So with that, I did on the next slide, if you haven't seen it, we announced this morning a $1,500 bonus and 2 additional days off added to the calendar. The real goal of this is to achieve what I was just talking about and really aiming it to be the first step in a cultural shift where we're centering people. We're talking honestly about what's going on for people. We're inviting that vulnerability and we're building belonging and community, as Lori and David have already spoke to. So the next slide highlights the poster that hopefully you've seen and you will see hanging on walls in California and Vermont. I won't spend too much time here because I know that it's already in your email boxes. So if you haven't seen it, please do take some time to read through that poster. Next, I also wanted to talk about the Continuing Education Fund, and exciting news to share that this has been fully restored, and we're also expanding this to Monterey. So this is really important as we return to stability to bring back this important benefit and also expand to offer it across all locations. So that is a piece where we hope this is also really good news and that people can begin to engage and use this continuing ed fund as they have in the past. And the next slide really starts to outline what to expect next. So as many of you know, the first step as I've been here my first 60 days has really been a listening tour. So first, thank you to so many of you that have spent time with me over the last couple of months and shared what you love about your jobs, what's challenging about your jobs, ideas and solutions. I'm really grateful, and it's been really fun to get to meet everyone. And I'm also looking forward to meeting many more that I haven't gotten to. My goal in these conversations has really been around building an understanding of what's working and where there are opportunity areas, really thinking about what the demand is of different areas related to HR and the complexity, how we prioritize and build a real plan to move forward. Next, I'll be building that plan. So it's really trying to take an ecosystem approach to people strategy. How do we think about people experience and employee experience from start all the way through tenure working at Middlebury? Really acting on community feedback and consistent themes that are coming up from many different conversations, and also aiming to balance equity with flexibility. So what does it mean to create organization, institution-wide solutions and approaches, but also make sure that we're being flexible for different stakeholder groups and different people across our community? And then last is action. This is all about action. And so you saw in the announcement this morning that we want to be really clear and start taking those actions. We want to co-create the solutions with you, but also lead with those solutions. So really trying to continue to move that conversation forward. We are working on the new stock compensation plan. It will launch July 2022. We have some time, and that is good news because we are committed to really building that together, gaining community feedback to make sure that we have lots of voices in those conversations. I'm really excited about a pilot that we're going to be doing in partnership with Nicole Curvin in admissions to really try to test and iterate on some of our initial approaches to building out this new compensation plan and work with her to pressure test against what we're building and get some early feedback. So thank you to Nicole for that. And more to come on experience, on growth, recognition, staffing. There's a lot that we are working on and trying to build into this plan. And really my goal is to develop systems that are steady state that we can build, and then we can continue to build on and start to create this ecosystem approach to people. So more to come. And I'll leave it there and hand it back to Lori, and excited to get a chance to share this and be back with many of you in the coming months. You're still on mute, Lori.
Yeah, I can totally do it. Yeah. Thank you. Everyone can hear me now? Can you hear me here?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Caitlin, thank you. A couple of things, if you could just elaborate on a couple of things. One is, many of you heard about the Mercer study that we did on compensation, and Caitlin is working with those data. Wonder if you could just say a little more about that, Caitlin, and to build out the plan. And secondly, one of the things that we have noticed is that professional development is incredibly important to people as we've listened to them, and also deepens a sense of belonging. And so we really want to focus as well on opportunities, creating more opportunities for professional development for staff. So Caitlin, if you could just talk about those two things, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, on the Mercer data, as I've been working with our HR team to get up to speed on what's been done over the last couple of years and also build out a plan forward, we are really, the Mercer data is going to be incredible. It is incredibly helpful to have that as an input. So we are using the Mercer data as an input to this broader plan. So it is helping us understand the market and helping us build these grades of how we're thinking about how different roles will stack up and how we think about the broad strategy. And it is not the be all and end all. The Mercer data is an input, and we are now building a strategy, a philosophy, and an execution plan around compensation. And so as we move forward with that, we'll be sharing some of that data of how we got there and how we're using the Mercer data and other data to make sure we're relevant across many different markets. So I hope that answers your question, Lori. On the professional development side, this is going to be fully embedded into this ecosystem approach that I'm talking about. When I think about people or employee experience, I think about recruiting, hiring, growth, and retaining people. In that growth and retain kind of section of this, it's all about growth and impact, professional development, learning, engaging in new and exciting opportunities where you feel yourself both challenged and motivated to step into new learning spaces. How we do that is likely many different on-ramps for people, and we have to create those structures to invite people into that learning, into that development. And so it will absolutely be critical and part of the plan. And I'm excited to build that out and hear lots of different ideas across the community.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to end with some remarks right at the end, but let's open it up to questions. Bob, do you want to do from the Q&A? I could do it from here too, if you. Okay. Okay. Yep, that's great. David, did you hear?
No, sorry, I did not.
Yeah. Can you read the Q&A or focus on what's coming in the Q&A? I just want to make sure we respond to them for a few minutes before I end.
Yeah. And Lori, there's also a couple in the chat as well.
I see 3 in the Q&A that I can work through. I think they're all for me, if you want me to take those.
Okay. Yep, okay. Go for it, Kate.
Okay, so the first question is, will newer employees be eligible for the bonus and the 2 extra days off? I started in September, and I have 4 new staff who work under myself, and I'd love to explain and share this with them. Very exciting. So great news. All employees, all benefit eligible employees are eligible for those 2 extra days off. So that's available for anyone, regardless of start date. The eligibility for the bonus is any benefit eligible employee who is employed here as of July 1 of this year. The reason we did that is because we really wanted to focus on people who have been here for a significant amount of time and have been through the last couple of years at Middlebury. And so that is the cutoff date. We know that for staff who have joined more recently, this may not be, this may land as unfortunate news, but as we said, this is the first step. Still get those days off, more to come. And we hope that you're just getting started and getting to know your role here, and you're excited about what's to come. So I hope that's a helpful explanation there. The next question is around describing what you mean specifically about the compensation launch in 2022. How will you decide who gets launched? And will any compensation adjustments be possible before 2022? So when we talk about the new compensation system, we are planning to launch a new philosophy and execution plan around compensation in July of 2022. It's really hard to say, kind of carte blanche, no changes, no adjustments. There's always complexity. So I'm hesitant to give a universal answer there, but we will be making a full, broad, institution-wide look at staff compensation in July 2021. And then the third question, how soon can we begin using the Continuing Education Fund? Very soon, right now. So it's up, it's running, and so plan to go ahead and use that through the regular channels.
So available immediately.
Available immediately. If others want to jump in on these Q&A, or I can keep going down.
Maybe, yeah, we have a live one here, Caitlin, so we'll just pause. And if there are other folks who can address in the chat some of the questions, just so we can have, if they're for, or other SLG members can address. I know that if one of you can capture the questions, we can also respond to them individually too. Hi.
Hi.
Patricia. Okay, Patricia's not on camera. This is Patricia Sass at Monterey. Go ahead, Miss. Go ahead.
I'm really excited about the VP for Equity and Inclusion, and what's the timeline you're hoping to get that person in
Yes.
and started?
Thank you. So I think, saw the announcement of who is on the committee. We have some great people from MIS, as well as from language schools, as well as from the Vermont campus. And we have had an initial meeting, which we're really excited about. The next step after that initial meeting is for the firm to interview everyone on the committee, as well as major stakeholders across the institution, about what they would like to see in this new position, and then create a position description. The reason why you work with a firm is not to post an ad and see who's interested, which is one way to run a search, and people still do it that way. And sometimes we do it that way when it's easier. But rather to recruit people who are deeply happy, productive, and beloved at their institutions, and say, hey, here's another opportunity, let's do this. And that's the kind of person we want. So we're very excited about the folks that are out there that we think could span across the institution in really new and interesting ways. We've gotten to the point in our equity and inclusion work that we are ready to take the next step. Particularly, an example here in Monterey, the work of that task force was awesome. We're working on executing on those recommendations. So they are in the middle of interviewing now. We hope to meet probably within the next 2 weeks. We hope before Thanksgiving to go over the position description and then go for it. After that, they will then give us probably several weeks later, early in the new year, the roster of people who they think qualify for such an awesome opportunity. They are busy selling this awesome opportunity to incredibly cool people who will have to be wrenched away from their work. It is a confidential search because these people know that wherever they are, the reverberations of having been taken away will be real. But then we go through the interview process, which we hope will be around February. And then hopefully we'll be able to get someone before the end of the year. It may be they start within the new calendar year, given their own challenges for moving. So that's what we're hoping to do. It is an all institution-wide committee. And just a reminder that we have a trustee committee for equity and inclusion now that I think is meeting tomorrow. And we are very excited to partner with them as well. We have a trustee, Mark Spence, on our hiring committee for this. So stay tuned, more to come, but the Storbeck is busy. I will tell you that their report is the landscape out there is that everybody's looking. Everybody wants what I call a pony, like the perfect, person. That's going to be very hard. However, their feedback to us is we are clearly an institution that's doing the work, even though the challenges are real and deep and sometimes heartbreaking as well as exhilarating. But the work of equity and inclusion is something that they feel really excited about how Middlebury is approaching it. And these are folks who are expert in that space in the national landscape. So stay tuned for more. I hope that answers your question. I think time-wise, we should probably end, but I wanted to end with some really exciting announcements. The first is we've made real progress in our capital or in our comprehensive campaign. We have 2 new $10 million gifts that have just come in. The first is for developing the arts, particularly the renovation of a Vermont building on campus called the Johnson Building, as well as the exploration of a new museum that is from a private family foundation, exploring the role of arts in democracy more generally. So that's also very exciting to think about as an institution-wide initiative. The second is from trustee Ted Truscott. He was very happy to share his name and leadership. He and his wife Kathy have donated several million for the establishment of a professorship in Black Studies, as well as $500,000 for financial aid. So we're really excited about that. And that's broadly speaking for the entire institution, as well as several million for a challenge every year to the annual fund as we move forward. So those are 2 really exciting gifts. I hope to share more news about other large gifts over the course of this year. And the third thing I wanted to end with, again, thanking you for your courage, is how inspired I've been as we've worked with our Afghani alums and students, even here on the Monterey campus. They, a particular 2 alums, one who created the first women's boarding school in Afghanistan, and Shabana Bisadra Sikh, as well as Bilal Sawari, who is one of the leading young journalists and advocates for freedom of inquiry in Afghanistan, both as they made an incredibly harrowing journey out of Kabul in August, both credited their Middlebury education with giving them the courage to do what they did to build Afghanistan in the way that they did, and to continue that work from their places of exile. That was incredibly encouraging to me to see. It's what inspired me to think about liberal learning as a form of courage or of giving people courage. And I will also add that I've had several conversations with students from Afghanistan here at Monterey in the last 36 hours. And they too have been incredibly inspiring to hear why they're pursuing the education that they're pursuing and the world that they want to create. And quite frequently, I think we forget that what we are educating for and how we are educating has to do with the creation of courage, both in our students and in ourselves. And staff, in all the myriad ways that we see the effects of your work every day, you are part of the building of that courage. And I want to thank you again. And we will see you all around all our campuses very soon. Take care.